My husband used all of my hard-earned savings without permission to buy a car for his daughter, leading to a breaking point in our marriage. I'm 27 and my husband Michael is 36. We tied the knot 6 months ago, but we've been together for about 4 years. My husband has a 16-year-old daughter named Carrie. Michael and I were in a relationship long before he introduced me to his daughter. Carrie shares a close bond with her mom, Nina, even though her parents separated 8 years ago, and her mom has since remarried. In the beginning, her mother tried to pollute her mind, saying her dad had been cheating on her with me. This is why Carrie has hated me from day one, even though her dad has clarified to her several times that we met long after her parents' divorce. She has always perceived that I am attempting to take the place of her mom, even though it's a role I have never really aimed for or tried to fulfill. I have only wanted to be a responsible role model for her and tried to let our relationship develop on her terms since she was nearly an adult when we met, but she was not interested. Carrie has always made it clear that she has no desire to know me or have any kind of relationship with me. It has always seemed to me that she simply did not want her father, Michael, to move on, and this is why she hates me. Despite my genuine efforts to extend help, she consistently treats me poorly. It's been nearly a year and a half, and there's been no positive change. I've attempted various approaches, such as giving her gifts, discussing relatable topics, and sharing my own experiences from when I was her age, but nothing seems to resonate with her. In the beginning, Carrie lived with her mother, but around a year ago, Carrie expressed her wish to live with her dad. The decision was influenced by the fact that our school district had a better basketball team, something she was passionate about, and planned to play well into college. My husband discussed with me the idea of Carrie moving in with us, and at first, I was a bit worried, but he assured me, saying that this would allow me and Carrie to get to know each other better. I started feeling genuinely excited about it. I saw her as a wonderful addition to our family. When Carrie moved in, she seemed at first content with her new home and school, but she wasn't particularly thrilled to see me, which I knew all along. However, I thought things would get better over time, but they never did. Carrie consistently made negative comments and insults about almost everything I did. Michael is not really an involved parent. Hence, as a result, he doesn't check things like whether Carrie completes her assignments or if she's sneaking out in the middle of the night to drink with her friends. I noticed all these things and, for her welfare, talked with Michael about it. We tried to establish boundaries or enforce rules, but Carrie would openly challenge our authority, whether it was about curfew times, household chores, or even basic etiquette. She made a point to defy our instructions and complain to her father about how we shouldn't interfere in her life. She would also talk to her mom and say how I was trying to control her life, and Nina would call to scream at me. I have noticed that she enters my office without knocking to read my personal messages or eavesdrop on phone conversations. When I confronted her about it, she justified it by saying she just wanted to make sure that I was not cheating behind her father's back. This shocked me, and later, when Michael decided to have a conversation with her regarding her statement, Carrie told him how she thought I was just a gold digger who was after his money. This is absolutely not true, since I am the only child of my parents, who are quite wealthy themselves. I continue to work and have never asked my parents for anything. We even bought this house together where Carrie lives, yet she had the audacity to call me such names. She doesn't eat the food I cook, as a way of showing how she thinks that I suck at everything. In the beginning, I used to think maybe she didn't like my style of cooking, so I tried to learn her favorite dishes and left them in the fridge for her to eat whenever she wanted to. The next day, to my shock, I found out that she had thrown the entire dish in the trash. When this continued for 3 to 4 times, I stopped making any efforts whatsoever. If we were sitting all together as a family to watch a movie, she would either leave or sit beside her dad. If she had something to say, then she would ask her dad to come to her room and talk, even though it would be something totally normal, like asking permission to go somewhere or something about school. She tries to make me feel like I am this outsider, and it absolutely breaks my heart. Carrie also seemed particularly fixated on my relationship with food. I have always struggled with a severe eating disorder since middle school, and though I was better as an adult, I had retained some unique habits. I never explicitly shared this with her, but it appeared she had picked up on how sensitive I was to comments about food and would use this as a means to taunt me. She would comment negatively on how I look. When her dad was in the room, she would make comments like, "Oh, I think you should not wear this because this makes you look a little chubby." When her dad wasn't around, she would insult me directly by saying how she wished her father would have married someone better looking. Her negative comments didn't just stop there. My eating habits involved a variety of foods that appealed to me at the moment, often spread across multiple small plates to avoid mixing different categories of food. Despite the unconventional approach, I found it practical, and since I was the one handling the dishes, it didn't bother me. However, Carrie had consistently commented on this habit, making remarks about how weird I was and how this was the reason why I was fat as an elephant. This was so hurtful to hear, even though I knew I was nowhere near fat, but her mean remarks were starting to get to me. Once during a family dinner, she casually commented, "Don't you think you've had enough?" leaving the sentence hanging in the air, insinuating that I was eating too much. I had already had a bad day at work, so in frustration, I told her I didn't care about her opinion and suggested she refrain from speaking to me unless it was an emergency. I emphasized that I wouldn't tolerate anyone treating me disrespectfully. Hearing this, Carrie started saying how she was only trying to help me and walked away from the dining table. Michael later told me how I could have handled the situation better and that I should behave more like an adult. For Christmas, we decided to embark on a special trip to Thailand, a destination I had been saving up for since I was 18. Due to my prudent spending and notable career achievements, I managed to cover the entire cost of the trip as a Christmas gift for my husband, stepdaughter, and myself. We stayed in a stunning Airbnb with 2 bedrooms, a pool, and breathtaking views. However, Carrie deemed the trip a waste of her time, expressing how she would have preferred living more locally. We reminded her that she had agreed to join us and that the location was known to her, but she continued to complain about everything. When we wanted to go out, she would complain about how hot it was and that she didn't want to do any activities with us. She even called Nina from our Airbnb to complain about how much she hated being on this vacation, while Nina tried to reassure her that it was just a matter of a few days. Feeling defeated by her attitude, after trying to persistently convince her to join us, we would leave her to sulk in the Airbnb while we explored. On our last day, I felt a bit unwell due to a stomach bug and vomited several times. Carrie must have noticed this because she suddenly told Michael, "Dad, is she pregnant? I don't want her to ever have a child." Michael immediately told her that she should not talk like that. In anger, she decided to stop talking to me altogether. Since returning home, her silence persisted. She continued to harbor resentment towards everything. When my parents came to visit us, she refused to talk to them and walked right past them. This was extremely disrespectful, so I talked to Michael about it, thinking that, for once, he would try to make her understand. But as usual, he started defending her, saying how she didn't have to talk to my parents if she didn't want to. I retorted that if she didn't want to acknowledge my parents or me, then I would also start doing the same to her. Michael asked what I meant by that, and I reminded him that I pay for her education as well as her extra training classes in basketball. So I was going to stop doing that, and he could take her full responsibility from now on. I would also stop doing any chores for her, and he could start doing her dirty laundry, washing her dishes, and cooking her food. Hearing this, he immediately tried to backtrack, saying how I didn't have to take things so far and that he would talk to her. That night, I heard him go into her room to talk, but just a few minutes later, I could hear Carrie screaming. I barged into the room due to the commotion to hear Carrie cursing me out, saying how she wished Michael had never met me and that she wished that I was dead. This shocked me immensely, but before I could say something, Michael lost his control. He screamed at her that he had had enough of her teenage rebellion and that he was doing everything he could to make this relationship work. But if she didn't like living with us, then she was welcome to go back to her mom. Carrie had tears in her eyes since this was the first time that I had ever heard Michael finally stand up to her. She started crying, but Michael continued to say how she could start packing her clothes and he would be happy to book her a flight the next day. I decided to intervene and try to calm the situation down. I told Michael that we needed to take a beat, but Carrie shot me an angry glance, probably still blaming me for her dad's outburst. Since then, we have hardly spoken. She has gone back to barely talking to me, but at least she doesn't criticize or taunt me anymore. I was happy with this outcome as long as she didn't outright disrespect me. But the thing was that she didn't speak to Michael either, which surprised him completely since she had never given him the silent treatment. He tried to apologize to her several times, but she kept up with her cold and silent demeanor, seemingly unyielding in her resentment. Nina also reprimanded Michael for raising his voice to her, saying that he should choose his daughter over his new wife and that he should be a better dad. Days turned into weeks, and the strained atmosphere persisted. Carrie's refusal to engage in any conversation created an awkward dynamic within our household. In an attempt to break the ice, Michael called for a family meeting where we could openly address our concerns and work toward a resolution. He apologized to her again, while I expressed my genuine desire to understand her perspective. I assured her that I was open to finding ways to make our living situation more comfortable for everyone. We waited for her to speak when Carrie cleared her throat and surprised us by saying how we needed to prove how sorry we were to her. Michael asked what she meant by that, and she said she had always wanted a car, and now was the way for her dad to show he was sorry, he could buy a car for her. My eyes widened in astonishment, realizing how absurd her demand was. We had already been saving up for her college fund, where even I had been contributing. So we tried to explain that buying a car right now wasn't possible. But Carrie wasn't willing to listen. As a compromise, We suggested maybe we could revisit the idea of a car on her 18th birthday when things might be better for us financially, but Carrie didn't want to hear it. She was stubborn and only focused on getting what she wanted right away, even if it wasn't practical. She started telling Michael how he could only fix things by giving her what she wanted, otherwise she would continue not talking to him. The whole situation made it clear to me that Carrie's request for a car was about more than just wanting a vehicle. It seemed like she was using it as a way to manipulate us and test how much control she had in our family. Our family meeting ended at an impasse. Later, I talked with Michael, saying how he needed to talk to Carrie further and make her understand that buying a car right now was not something we could afford. Michael asked if we should break off our bonds so we could buy a car for her, but I firmly told him that they were our retirement plans and it would not be wise to do that. Last week, while I was away on a business trip, I received a call from Michael that left me utterly shocked. He informed me that he had used all of our joint savings to buy a car for Carrie. My initial response was a mix of shock and betrayal. This account mainly had my savings, since Michael used most of his money for Carrie's daily expenditures. I had been saving this money for quite some time, and it was my emergency fund for a rainy day. He had absolutely no right to make such a significant financial decision without discussing it with me. Michael tried to justify it, saying how he had been feeling guilty and urged me to see that now that we had bought this car for his daughter, she would forgive us and treat us better for the sake of our family's peace. No matter how hurt I was, I decided to let things go because I thought Carrie and I would have a better relationship after this. However, upon my return, the situation escalated further when I discovered the hard way that the car was not meant for our family's use, but exclusively for Carrie. You see, yesterday, when I wanted to go to the grocery store and asked Carrie for the keys, since Michael had taken our car that day for work, she looked at me with a mix of disdain and defiance, declaring, "You're not allowed to use my car." The emphasis on "my" was unmistakable, and it felt like a direct challenge to my place within the family. The audacity of the statement stunned me, but I decided it was time to assert myself. I calmly looked at her, noticed her keys were on the desk, grabbed them, and walked out to the car. Carrie looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and annoyance. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she processed the unexpected turn of events, and then she started yelling behind me, saying how I had no right to take her keys. She threatened to call the police on me. This is when I admit that I lost my head. I took a deep breath and continued, "Carrie, it's time we address the real issues. Here. This car was bought with our joint savings, and it's meant to be a family asset. You cannot claim exclusive ownership, especially when it comes to an expense of my hard-earned money." I continued to tell her that if she wanted me not to drive it, then she needed to be an adult, get a job, save money, and buy a car for herself. I continued to tell her that she was welcome to call the police, and I would be happy to explain to them the entire situation. Her face was dumbstruck, taken aback by my assertiveness. At night, when Michael returned home, Carrie started complaining to him about me using the car and how I had taken the keys from her desk. When Michael confronted me about it, I told him that I needed the car since he had taken our car for work and I needed to go to the grocery store. To my surprise, instead of understanding, Michael asked me why I couldn't take an Uber to the store. I noticed Carrie smirking, seeing how her dad was taking her side. I calmly explained to Michael that this was our car also, and as Carrie was at home, I borrowed the car for some time. I questioned Michael why he would buy a car with my savings if he didn't want me to use it at all. Michael sighed and urged me to be more understanding, emphasizing the difficulties Carrie faced in adjusting to our family. Feeling frustrated and cornered, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I looked at Michael with determination and said something that I had been thinking for a long time. If things continue like this, if you don't stand up for me and address these issues, I can't continue living like this. I'm done trying to make this work. Carrie clearly doesn't want us to stay married, so she can have her wish. Since I have been unhappy for too long, I'm starting to contemplate divorce. Michael's eyes widened in shock at my revelation. The weight of my words hung heavily in the air. He stammered, asking me if I was serious, but I stood my ground, explaining that my emotional well-being was at stake here. Carrie didn't look so happy either, seeing how distressed her dad was. Michael tried to say how we needed to think about this with a cool mind, and that he would make sure Carrie and I could come to a compromise. But I was honestly so done with this toxic family situation that I decided to pack up my things and drive to my parents' place. This morning, I woke up to several messages and calls from Michael, Carrie, and Nina, saying how I was overreacting and making a big deal out of nothing. Carrie texted me, saying how I was unnecessarily punishing her dad and trying to control him just because I am a spoiled gold digger. Nina, just like her daughter, feels I am to blame for everything, and wrote how I am trying to create a divide between Carrie and Michael. I have refused to reply back to Michael, even though he has sent several apologies. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who provided supportive comments and advice. After carefully considering this situation and reflecting on the struggles I have endured, I decided it is time for a serious conversation with Michael. I have realized that I have suffered enough, and it is crucial for things to change. If Michael doesn't agree with me, then I have discussed things with my parents, and I will go along with the divorce route. It breaks my heart to even think about this because I really love Michael and I have never imagined we would end up like this. Update 2. Hello everyone. Thank you for everyone's patience. It's been a week since my last update. Following my decision to address the issues with Michael, we finally had a heartfelt conversation yesterday. I asked him to come over to my parents' place since I didn't want to have this discussion in front of Carrie. To my surprise, Michael started by acknowledging his mistakes and offering sincere apologies for how he behaved with me. He told me how he had talked with Carrie to make sure that the next time I needed the car, she would give me the keys. Hearing this, I shook my head. I told him that although I understood his intentions, the issue wasn't her giving me the keys or not. The issue was that I didn't want to live with her anymore. I went on to show Michael the kind of messages that Carrie and Nina had sent me over the last couple of days, where they had been blaming me for everything. This had just solidified my belief that things needed to change. Michael was shocked to see that despite how much he had talked with Carrie, she had gone behind his back and called me a gold digger. I told him that I had sacrificed enough, and for our marriage to work, Carrie needed to go. During our discussion, I made it clear that Michael needed to find a solution with Nina, and they could come up with Carrie's future together. I also emphasized that I was no longer willing to finance Carrie's life or education since I am not her parent, and this should be his and Nina's responsibility only. I informed Michael firmly that I would be withdrawing my share of the college fund I had saved up for her, and that the car, which had been purchased with my savings, would be transferred to my name only. Initially hesitant, Michael eventually agreed, which demonstrated that he was willing to make our marriage work. In the end, he begged me to come back with him since he could not take care of Carrie all alone. But I told him that I would be returning only after Carrie had left. She was 16 now, so she should learn to take care of herself. It serves both of them right to take me for granted for so long and treat me like a doormat. I don't know how long it will take for things to change, but I am glad that I have finally spoken my mind. Now, it all depends on Michael. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I'm pleased to share positive developments. Following my conversation with Michael, he confronted Nina about her messages, to which she tried to justify them by saying how she only said those things because she was concerned as a mother. He also told her how we could not let Carrie continue to live with us and that she needed to step up as a parent since she did absolutely nothing. This is when Nina had a meltdown. She revealed that the reason Carrie had even come to live with us in the first place was because she behaved the same way with her new husband, who could not tolerate her anymore. This is why Nina had encouraged Carrie to live with us under the pretext that our school district had better basketball training. Now that we didn't want Carrie to live with us either, Nina finally decided to reveal the truth. In the end, it was decided that Carrie would live with Nina's parents until she started college, after which she would eventually move into a dorm. Michael had a discussion with Carrie only after everything had been decided, and she agreed that she would like to live with her grandparents. Michael also promised her to make up for her not living with us anymore. He would spend every Sunday together doing anything that she wanted. He has kept that promise, and they spend every weekend either watching her favorite movies or having lunch together. He's also encouraging her slowly to go to therapy. Michael and Nina are actively saving to purchase a separate car for Carrie, which they plan to give her on her 18th birthday. After this arrangement was finalized, I decided to move back to our house, and I have to say that my relationship with Michael has seen further improvement. I no longer feel ashamed to wear anything I want or eat anything I want. I'm also no longer financially responsible for Carrie's life, and my mental health has improved considerably.